My name is Danielle Morgan. I am 32 years old, and I run operations for a restaurant group that serves about 3,000 people a week across 4 locations. I know what a dinner check looks like before it ever reaches the table. I know how much a bottle of wine costs, by the way. A server carries it. I know when a large party is celebrating, and I know when a large party is setting somebody up. So when my parents called after 3 years of silence and invited me to dinner to start fresh, I should have asked one question before I said yes. Who else is coming? I did not ask. I drove 40 minutes to Bellamy, walked through the front doors, and found 16 members of my family already seated around a long table covered in lobster tails, Wagyu sliders, creme brulee spoons, and a $400 bottle of Bordeaux that was already half empty. My father looked up from the head of the table, smiled like we had spoken last week, and said the sentence my whole life had trained me to answer. "You're paying, right? You owe us that much." He thought he had cornered me. He thought the audience would do what it had always done: keep me quiet, keep me useful, keep my card on the table. He did not know I had already spoken to our waiter. He did not know his own credit card was about to tell the truth in front of every person at that table.
It's all in the wine
But I need to
pairing,
back up
Charles.
before the dinner, before the parking lot full of cars I recognized, before my father tried to hand me a bill the size of a rent payment. I need to tell you who I was the morning my mother added me back to the family group chat, because that was the woman they were counting on. They did not understand she was already gone. I grew up in Knoxville in a black family where money was always discussed without being named. Nobody said broke. They said tight. Nobody said debt. They said things are a little behind. Nobody said Danielle paid. They said Danielle helped out because she had a good heart. I was 17 when I started bussing tables at a steakhouse off Kingston Pike. I went to school the next morning smelling like fryer oil and lemon cleaner, with my tips folded inside a sock in my backpack because I was scared somebody would take them. By 19, I was a hostess. By 21, a server. By 24, a floor manager. By 30, I was regional operations director for 4 restaurants. I do not own them. I manage them. There is a difference. I have a 2-bedroom condo that is paid off because I bought small and stayed there. I drive a 9-year-old Honda. I meal prep on Sundays. My one little indulgence is sparkling water when I eat out. Still or sparkling, that is what I order. My staff thinks it is a quirk. It is not. When you grow up paying for everybody else's steak, you learn to keep your own tab small enough to walk away from. The morning my mother messaged me, I was sitting in my office reviewing a vendor contract for imported olive oil. It was the kind of Tuesday that smells like printer toner, cold coffee, and somebody's reheated fish in the break room. My phone buzzed beside my keyboard. I glanced down and felt my shoulders lock. Family added, "You." That was the name of the group chat, Family, with a little red heart my mother had chosen years earlier when the chat was still used for Thanksgiving recipes, church pictures, and videos of Brianna's dog tearing up a shoe. I had not seen that heart in 3 years. The history was gone. Nothing above the newest message. That meant they had either cleared it, or more likely they had made another group without me and kept this one clean for the invitation. My mother's message was warm enough to make me suspicious. "Hi, baby. Your father and I have been doing a lot of reflecting. We would like to invite you to dinner at Bellamy so we can start healing as a family. Just the 4 of us. You, me, Daddy, and Brianna. A small dinner. A fresh start. 30 seconds later, another message appeared. Family takes care of family, sweetheart. It is time we remembered that. I stared at those words. Family takes care of family. My mother, Renee Morgan, used to say that when I was 19 and she needed my server tips to cover the electric bill. She said it when I was 23, and my father needed someone to co-sign on his truck. She said it when Brianna's first apartment fell through and I quietly paid the deposit so my sister would not have to move back home. In our house, family takes care of family usually meant Danielle takes care of family. I read the message twice. I noticed what was missing. My mother did not say, "We were wrong." She did not say, "We hurt you." She did not say, "Your father should not have thrown you out of the family." She said it was time to heal, which is a nice, clean sentence when nobody wants to say who caused the wound. I typed, "I'll be there." Then I turned my phone face down and went back to the olive oil contract. I had to read the same paragraph 4 times because my hands would not stop shaking. 3 years earlier, my younger sister Brianna decided she wanted to open a cafe. Not after years in food service, not after managing a shop, not after building a business plan. She saw a cafe in Charleston with exposed brick, plants in the window, and little chalkboard signs for matcha drinks, and she decided she could do that too. Brianna was 26. She had charm, taste, and a gift for making other people believe her confidence was the same thing as preparation. What she did not have was money, a lease she understood, supplier contacts, or a realistic idea of what food costs do to a dream. She needed a $75,000 small business loan. The bank would approve it with a cosigner. That cosigner was supposed to be me. My mother called me on a Sunday after church. I could hear pots moving in her kitchen. My father, Robert Morgan, was somewhere nearby because every few seconds I heard him clear his throat the way he did when he was already angry and waiting for his turn. "Your sister needs you," my mother said. "For what?" "The cafe? The loan? She needs a cosigner." I asked to see the business plan. Silence. Then Brianna got on the phone. "Why are you acting like a bank?" "Because the bank is involved." "Danielle, it is my dream." "I know," I said. "That is why I want to see the numbers." My father took the phone then. His voice was low and tight. "Your sister is trying to do something with her life. I am not saying she shouldn't." "Then sign." I asked about projected margins, lease terms, equipment costs, insurance, payroll, vendor accounts, permits, cash reserves. Brianna got quieter with each question. My mother got colder. "You don't need a spreadsheet to love your sister," she said. I remember standing in my condo kitchen with the phone pressed to my ear, staring at a dish towel hanging from the oven handle. It had little lemons on it. I remember that because my brain held on to anything that was not my mother's voice. "I am not co-signing," I said. My father said the sentence that closed the door for 3 years. "If you won't help this family, you are not part of it." Nobody shouted after that. The line just went dead. The next morning, I was removed from family. No call, no text, no one came by. For 3 years, I became the daughter who loved money more than her own sister. That is not the part that hurt most. The part that hurt was how badly I still wanted them to call. If you have ever been the person everyone expects to fix the bill, the mood, the crisis, and the silence, you know how hard it is to stop reaching for your wallet. Before I tell you what happened inside Bellamy, take a second to like this video and subscribe. And if this story sounds familiar, tell me where you are listening from. I know there are more of us than people admit. The silence almost broke me. Not because I thought they were right, I knew they were not. I had worked in restaurants long enough to know what $75,000 of debt looks like. At 2 in the morning, when the espresso machine is broken, the walk-in cooler is warm, and the landlord still wants rent. The silence hurt because I missed being needed. That was the ugly truth. I had been the family fixer since I was 17. My first paycheck went toward groceries. My tax refund went to my mother's dental work. When my father's transmission failed, I paid for the repair and told him the mechanic had found a warranty credit because I knew he would not accept money from his daughter if he had to look at it directly. When Brianna got married, I covered the florist, the photographer, and half the reception. I smiled while my mother gave a toast about raising 2 strong daughters. 2 strong daughters, one paying the invoice. I did not do all of that because I was generous. I did it because I had learned young that the fastest way to keep peace in my family was to make sure nobody had to ask twice. Ask once, Danielle pays, everybody stays warm. I trained them. That is the part therapy made me say out loud. My therapist, Dr. Quinn, was a small woman with silver braids and glasses that always sat low on her nose. She did not let me decorate the truth. In our second year together, she looked at me over her notebook and said, "You taught them your love could be collected like payment. That does not make you bad. It means you have to stop teaching it." I hated that sentence for about 6 months. Then, I needed it. When my mother's message appeared after 3 years, I felt the old reflex come alive in my chest. Go fix it. Go make it quiet. Pay whatever it costs, and maybe they will love you again. Then I heard Dr. Quinn's voice. Stopping is also repair. My coworker Jasmine told me not to go. She sat across from me in the staff office the day after the invitation, peeling the label off a plastic tea bottle. "Danielle," she said, "this sounds like an ambush." I laughed because Jasmine had never met my family and could still see it cleaner than I could. Miguel, our sous chef at the downtown location, said the same thing while breaking down a case of onions. "Nope," he said, "I don't like it." "You don't even know what it is." "I know enough. Family dinner after 3 years at Bellamy? No." But I had already decided, not because I believed my parents had changed. Not really, and not because I expected an apology. I wanted to sit across from them and see if there was anything left besides the pattern. I wanted to know if 3 years had done anything, or if the silence had only been another way of making me pay. There was another reason, too, and I am not proud of how small it made me feel. I missed my mother. Not the mother who kept score, not the mother who could turn guilt into a full dinner menu. I missed the woman who taught me to make cornbread in a cast-iron skillet when I was 9, the woman who sang Gladys Knight while the butter melted, off-key and happy, tapping her spoon against the bowl. That woman had not called in 3 years either, but some nights, when my condo was quiet, I still heard her singing. So I told Jasmine I was going. I told Miguel I would be fine. I told myself the same thing until it almost sounded true. I made one rule: 1 dinner, civil, no money. If it feels wrong, leave before dessert. I wrote it on a yellow sticky note and pressed it to my steering wheel the morning of the dinner. 1 dinner, then home. That note was still there when I pulled into Bellamy's parking lot and counted the cars. I dressed simple on purpose. Black slacks, gray blouse, flat shoes, no jewelry except the small silver watch I bought myself the year I made regional director. I did not wear it to impress anyone. I wore it because I had earned it and because it kept good time. That felt like enough. I did not want to walk into Bellamy looking like a performance. My family already thought I flaunted my life. The truth was, I drove an old Honda and clipped coupons for cleaning supplies like anybody else who had ever watched a bill come due. The drive took 40 minutes. I played no music. My hands stayed at 10 and 2. Somewhere near the highway merge, my stomach tightened the way it does when a walk-in cooler fails on a Friday night, and you know the next 6 hours are going to be expensive. My body knew before I did. I almost turned around at the exit. I had my signal on. I could have taken the ramp, gone home, heated leftover soup, and let Bellamy serve whatever family drama had been cooked up without me. Then I thought about my mother and the cornbread bowl. I kept driving. Bellamy sat at the end of a landscaped strip of shops on the expensive side of town, the kind of place with black awnings, brass handles, and hostesses who do not have to ask if you have a reservation because they already know you should. My father's truck was in the 3rd row. My mother's sedan was beside it. Fine. Then I saw Aunt Loretta's white Buick, Uncle Gerald's SUV, Brianna's hatchback with the faded bumper sticker from the cafe that had lasted 11 months. 3 more cars I recognized. 2 I did not. Just the 4 of us, my mother had written. I counted 9 vehicles. I sat in my car for 2 full minutes with the engine off, reading the sticky note on my steering wheel. 1 dinner, then home. The smart thing would have been to leave. I know that. A healthier woman might have put the car in reverse and driven back to her quiet condo with her peace intact. I was not that healthy yet. I got out, straightened my blouse, locked the car, and walked toward the entrance. I was 32 years old. I had spent 3 years learning not to run from my own discomfort. I was not going to start running in a restaurant parking lot while my aunt ate lobster inside. The front doors were heavy glass with brass handles. Inside, the lobby smelled like rosemary, warm bread, and money. A young hostess in a black dress smiled at me. "Reservation name?" "Morgan." Her eyes moved to the screen. The smile stayed, but something behind it changed. I knew that look. I had worn that look. Large party, already seated, probably loud, definitely complicated. "Your party is in the private alcove," she said. "Follow me." She picked up one menu, just one. I heard them before I saw them. Laughter. Glasses. Aunt Loretta's cackle cutting through the dining room like she had paid extra for the acoustics. The hostess turned the corner, and there they were. 16 chairs, 15 filled, one empty at the far end, directly across from my father. The table stretched the full length of the private alcove, white linen, heavy silverware, low candles, lobster tails spread over crushed ice, Wagyu sliders on a tiered stand, a charcuterie board the size of a small coffee table. In the center sat a bottle of 2016 Bordeaux I recognized from vendor tastings, retail around $400, already half empty. They had been there a while. They had been ordering hard. The hostess paused beside me and lowered her voice. "Your father put a card down to hold the reservation. We require one for parties over 12. I filed that sentence away. His card was on file. My mother saw me first. "Danielle." She stood with both arms open and every head at the table turned. Then they clapped. Actual applause. Like I was a returning soldier and not the daughter they had ignored for 3 years. Uncle Gerald whistled. Aunt Loretta dabbed at her eyes with a cloth napkin. Brianna raised her wine glass and smiled with her mouth, not her eyes. I stood there for half a second, long enough to feel the room tilt. 16 people, lobster and Wagyu and $400 wine, just the 4 of us. Then I sat down. What else do you do when a server is already pouring water into your glass before your purse touches the floor? You sit, you smile. You let 15 years of front-of-house training take over while the rest of your brain starts counting exits. My mother sat back down, glowing. "We wanted to surprise you," she said. "The whole family together, like old times." I thought it was just the 4 of us. She waved her hand as if I had brought up a small typo. "Well, once Loretta heard, then Gerald, then your cousins, it just grew. You know how family is." I knew exactly how family was. I scanned the table. My father sat at the head, cutting into a Wagyu slider as if it were Thanksgiving turkey. Brianna sat to his left, phone in one hand, wine in the other. Aunt Loretta and Uncle Gerald anchored the middle. Cousins filled the rest. Terrence, Monique, a couple of spouses, and one woman I had never met who apparently qualified for lobster by proximity. My mother leaned across and squeezed my hand. "See?" she said. "Family takes care of family." There it was again. Same words, same warm wrapping, same target. I squeezed back once and let go. My father has always been the kind of man who orders for the table. Not asks, orders. He waved the waiter over, a thin young man with tired eyes and a name tag that read Noah. Noah looked maybe 19 or 20, built the way restaurant kids are built before they learn when to eat. Fast, careful, underfed, and trying not to show panic at a 16 top that had already decided he belonged to them for the evening. "Another round of lobster tails," my father said. "2 more Wagyu plates. And bring another bottle of that Bordeaux. The good one." The good one. Loud enough for 2 nearby tables to hear. My father pulled his credit card from his wallet and held it between 2 fingers, like a man showing proof of something. "Put it all on this," he told Noah. "We're celebrating." Noah nodded, wrote it down, and left with the look of someone who wanted to disappear into the kitchen for 30 seconds and breathe. I watched my father tuck the card back into his wallet and pat it. Something was wrong. Robert Morgan did not order $400 wine. I had watched that man argue over a muffler estimate. I had watched him drive across town because gas was 3 cents cheaper. I had watched him send soup back because it was lukewarm and then tip 10% because they should have got it right the first time. He did not wave credit cards around. This was a performance. It was aimed at me. Look how fine we are, Danielle. Look how little we needed you. Except his truck outside was the same truck from 5 years ago, with the dent in the rear quarter panel still unfixed. And my mother's old coach purse sat on the chair beside her with a cracked strap tucked under the flap where she hoped nobody would see. They were pretending. I just did not know yet how much they expected the act to cost me. The small cuts started with the second bottle. Aunt Loretta leaned around Uncle Gerald and said, "Must be nice running all those fancy restaurants while the rest of us are clipping coupons." She laughed after she said it. People do that when they want the wound to look like a joke. Monique asked if I ever felt guilty being so comfortable while my parents were going through a rough patch. I did not know about a rough patch. Nobody had told me about a rough patch. Brianna did not look up from her phone. She wouldn't know. She hasn't been around. Each comment landed with a little click. Not scripted exactly, but aligned. Like a church choir finding the same note because everybody already knows the hymn. Danielle left. Danielle has plenty. Danielle owes. Aunt Loretta reached across the table and patted my hand. Family doesn't keep score, baby. I almost laughed. This was a woman who once stopped speaking to her daughter-in-law for 6 months because she did not get the chair she wanted at Thanksgiving. I did not laugh. I gently pulled my hand back and lifted my glass. Sparkling water. That was all I had ordered. 16 people floating in lobster, wine, and butter, and me at the end with a glass of water like a designated driver at a bachelor party. Noah passed behind me and stopped near my chair. "Just the sparkling water tonight?" he asked quietly. "Just the water," I said. He nodded like he understood something I had not said. Let me tell you about Noah. He was new enough to still care too much and experienced enough to know nobody at that table was going to make his night easy. He moved fast, but not sloppy. He cleared plates before anyone noticed they were empty. He refilled glasses, brought extra butter, answered Aunt Loretta's same question twice, and never let his face show what he was probably thinking. I recognized him because I had been him, 17 years old, 2 tables too deep, carrying plates up one arm, learning that the guests who snapped their fingers usually tipped the least. When Noah set down my fresh water, he caught me watching the table. "Long night?" he murmured. I almost told him the truth. Instead, I said, "You're doing great." He blinked, surprised. Then his shoulders straightened half an inch, and he moved on to Uncle Gerald's coffee. I watched him go and thought about the girl I used to be, crying in the walk-in cooler during double shifts, wiping her face with a bar towel, then going back out smiling because rent was due. That girl had no idea she would end up on the other side of a table like this, across from the family that had trained her to be both daughter and emergency fund. But she would have understood what I was starting to see. Around the 40-minute mark, I excused myself to the restroom. I needed 2 minutes without Aunt Loretta's voice and a door I could lock. Bellamy's restroom was all marble counters, lavender soap, cloth towels, and a full-length mirror that made you look slightly better than you felt. I did not feel good. My stomach felt like I had swallowed glass with the water. I turned on the faucet and pressed cold water against my wrists. That is an old restaurant trick. Cool the pulse points. Get the body to cooperate with the brain. Then I saw the phone. It was sitting on the edge of the marble counter, screen still lit, case covered in little daisy stickers. Brianna's phone. My sister left things everywhere. Jackets, keys, debit cards, half-full drinks. It was one of the few traits we shared. I did not plan to look. I want that clear. But the screen was bright, and the notification banner at the top showed a group chat I had never seen. Dinner plan. 3 members. Renee, Robert, Brianna. The newest preview stopped my hand before I reached for a towel. "Don't tell Danielle it's everyone. She won't dare. That was all the banner showed. My pulse went calm. Strangely calm. I picked up the phone the way I pick up an invoice that does not add up. The full message was from my mother, sent 4 days earlier. "Don't tell Danielle, it's everyone. Once she's there with the whole family watching, she won't dare say no. She never could handle a scene." Below it, my father had written, "Just make sure she sits at my end. I'll handle the ask." Brianna had replied 2 minutes later, "Order the good stuff before she gets there. Once it's on the table, she can't exactly send it back." LAL, I scrolled. 3 weeks of messages. My mother coordinating RSVPs. Loretta's in, Gerald's in. Monique says yes if there's wine. My father mostly practical. Reservation time, parking. How to make the invitation sound casual. How to make sure I did not know. Then the messages turned colder. My mother 10 days earlier. "The bank called again Thursday. We need to figure out something before June." My father. "Danielle can cover us through spring. She's got more than enough." Then my mother again, 8 days earlier. "It isn't asking for money. It's letting her back into the family. She should be grateful we're even giving her this chance." Grateful. I stood in that marble restroom with Brianna's phone in my hand and felt the last soft part of the evening harden. They wanted me to be grateful for being tricked into a 16-person dinner at a restaurant I did not choose, to pay a bill I did not order, to solve a crisis nobody had told me about for a family that had cut me off when I said no the last time. I set Brianna's phone back exactly where I found it, screen down. I washed my hands. I dried them with one of the cloth towels. In the mirror, I looked almost calm. I thought, I know what this is now. For the first time in 15 years, I was not going to pay. The calm surprised me. I expected rage. I expected tears. Instead, I felt the way a kitchen feels right before dinner rush, quiet for half a breath, every station ready, every knife in place. I walked back to the table with the same face I wear when a health inspector arrives without warning. Pleasant, still, fully awake. Nobody noticed the difference. Aunt Loretta was telling a story about her neighbor's divorce. Uncle Gerald was working on his third lobster tail. Brianna had reclaimed her phone and was scrolling again, never knowing I had read the whole plan. My mother kept glancing at my father's wallet on the table. Quick flicks of her eyes, a countdown. My father's laugh was too loud by half a beat. The second bottle of wine was almost empty, and nobody suggested slowing down because why would they? They were not paying. I was. That was the evening they had built. Every lobster tail, every Wagyu plate, every pour of that $400 Bordeaux was another brick in the little wall they were building around me, high enough that I could not climb out without making the scene my mother had counted on me avoiding. I started asking questions. Casual questions. Catching up questions. The kind you ask when you already know the answer and want to see who lies first. "How's the cafe, Brianna?" Her wine glass paused halfway to her mouth. "Oh," she said, "we closed." "I'm sorry to hear that. How long did it last?" 11 months. My mother stepped in before silence could gather. "Brianna is exploring other options. She has so many talents." Brianna looked at her plate. For 1 second, I saw embarrassment cross her face. Real embarrassment, not the performance kind. She had wanted that cafe to work. I knew that. She had been careless and entitled and wildly unprepared, but the dream itself had not been fake. That made it sadder, not safer. I turned to my father. "How's the contracting business? Still doing commercial builds?" His jaw tightened. It was quick, but I knew that tell before I knew how to drive. "Between projects," he said, "economy has been tough. You know how it is." I did know how it was. I knew because I had just read, "The bank called again Thursday," on my sister's phone 10 minutes earlier. I also knew because his truck still had that dent, because my mother's purse was held together with a safety pin, because the man sitting across from me had ordered 2 rounds of lobster and a $400 bottle of wine while pretending he was not scared of the check. I nodded and let them keep talking. People tell you plenty when they think you are the bank. They mentioned the kitchen renovation they had paused, the vacation they had decided to skip. A few things had been tight, but nothing we can't handle. Every sentence was a window into a house I could now see was on fire, while everybody stood on the lawn saying the smoke was from the grill. The pressure built the way it always did in my family, not with a straight question, with a current. Aunt Loretta sighed. "It must be rewarding, doing so well for yourself." Terrence said, "You really landed on your feet, Danielle." Uncle Gerald added, "Home run, kid." Each compliment pointed the same direction. "You have money. We see it. We are saying it in front of witnesses." My mother directed it from the middle of the table, a nod to Loretta, a smile at Terrence, a hand on my father's arm when he started too soon. She was good. She had always been good. When I was little, I thought my mother was just a warm person who liked hosting. By 32, I understood she was a project manager, and her longest-running project was me. The dessert menus arrived. Aunt Loretta ordered creme brulee without looking at the price. Brianna asked for the chocolate soufflé, which required a 20-minute lead time. The server told her it had already been placed. Of course it had. She had ordered dessert before I sat down. My water glass was down to ice. Brianna was the one who cracked the surface. She had enough Bordeaux in her system to sand down the little filter she carried between her brain and her mouth. She leaned across the table, smiling like we were sharing a joke. "Relax, big sister. It's just dinner. You can afford it." I set my glass down. "Afford what?" She gestured with her wine glass. The platters, the wine, the 16 place settings, the desserts being prepared by a kitchen that had no idea it was serving a shakedown. We ordered the good stuff since you're treating." "Since you're treating?" She said it like it had been settled in a meeting I missed, which, of course, it had. The table went quiet for about 3 seconds. That does not sound long until you are sitting inside it. My mother shot Brianna a look that said too early. Brianna shrugged and looked away. Uncle Gerald studied his plate. Aunt Loretta found sudden interest in her napkin. My father cleared his throat. Noah arrived with another bottle of sparkling water and poured it into my glass. As he set it down, 2 things became clear. Noah was the only person at that table who had given me anything without expecting money from me. Brianna had said out loud what every person in that room already knew. I was the mark. The whole dinner was a heist with candles. What happened next came through Monique by accident. She was trying, I think. Monique had been the only cousin who texted me happy birthday during the 2nd year of silence. I never answered because I did not know what door that would open, and I still felt bad about it. "So, Danielle," she said, "your mama said you got a big promotion. Something about running restaurants?" "Regional operations director," I said. 4 locations. "That's amazing. So you're in charge of all of them?" "Staffing, vendors, compliance, financial, service standards." "Everything from the loading dock to the check." I said it plainly, no bragging, just the job. But the word financials landed on that table like a dropped plate. Aunt Loretta stopped moving her fork. Uncle Gerald looked up. Brianna's thumb froze over her phone. My father shifted in his chair. They knew I was successful. They had built the evening around that idea, but I think they still imagined me as a waitress who had gotten lucky. They did not picture someone who read profit and loss statements for breakfast, someone who negotiated vendor contracts larger than their mortgage, someone who could estimate the cost of 16 lobster tails and 2 bottles of Bordeaux before the check ever arrived. The room recalculated. Not enough to save me, enough to make my father hurry. He waited until dessert. I will give him this. My father understood timing. The soufflés had arrived. The creme brulee was cracked open. The 2nd bottle of Bordeaux sat upside down in the ice bucket. The table was warm and full and slow with sugar and wine. My father set down his fork and folded his hands on the edge of the table. I had seen that pose before signing contracts, before Thanksgiving speeches, before telling me at 23 that he just needed a co-signer. Just this once. He looked at me with the expression of a man who believed he was being reasonable. "Danielle," he said, smiling, "you're paying, right? You owe us that much." 5 words. You owe us that much. 16 people heard them. Noah, refilling coffee behind me, heard them. The couple at the next table, pretending not to listen, heard them. My mother nodded. Brianna smirked. Aunt Loretta reached for another little dish of butter, as if the matter was settled. You owe us 3 years of silence, and not one person at that table had said they were sorry. I looked at my father across a table covered with the remains of a meal I had not ordered. I looked at the family I had not been told was coming. I looked at my glass of sparkling water, the only thing I had asked for. And I felt relief. The choice had been made for me. I did not answer right away. Silence does useful work in a room full of people who are used to being agreed with. 3 seconds. 5. People shifted. Someone reached for water. Someone else looked at the painting on the wall like it had suddenly become fascinating. For 15 years, I had paid so nobody would make a scene. I had covered deposits, dental work, truck repairs, wedding flowers, groceries, and all the little emergencies that somehow became mine by the time the bill came due. The price of belonging to my own family had just been announced in public. Lobster, wine, dessert, tax, tip, and 3 years of punishment. I looked at my father's hands, still folded. My mother's eyes, still warm and watchful. Brianna already halfway back to her phone because she thought the decision had been made. Noah, standing near the service station with the careful face of someone who knew something important was happening and did not want to miss a cue. Then I looked at the bubbles in my glass, small, clear, rising and disappearing without asking anyone's permission. I put my napkin on the table. "Let me take care of things," I said. My mother exhaled. Aunt Loretta patted her chest. My father unfolded his hands. Every one of them thought I was going to pay. I did not walk to the front register. I walked to the service station at the back of the dining room, where Noah was sorting check presenters beside a floor manager named Derek. Derek wore the standard black shirt, black tie, earpiece, and tired calm of a man who had handled proposals, breakups, drunken uncles, and birthday cakes with the wrong name on them. He looked up when I approached. "How can I help?" I kept my voice low, not secretive, professional. "I'm not the host for that table, and I won't be covering it tonight. Please bring the full check to the gentleman at the head of the table. His card is already on file for the reservation." Derek blinked once, then he glanced at Noah. Noah's eyes flicked toward the alcove and back to me. I added, "Please split off only my sparkling water. Add 30% for your team." Derek studied my face for a couple of seconds. Restaurant people know when a table has a story. They do not always know the details, but they know the shape. "Done," he said. "No argument. No. Are you sure?" No performance. I paid my check right there. 1 sparkling water, 2 refills, and a tip Noah had earned 10 times over. Derek handed me the receipt. "We'll present the table check after dessert clears," he said. "Thank you." I walked back to my seat, picked up my water, and took a slow sip. Brianna was arguing with Terrence about a reality show. Aunt Loretta was telling Uncle Gerald about a fence dispute. My mother watched me with the soft satisfaction of a woman who believed the bill had been handled. My father leaned back, arms crossed, almost smiling. 16 people eating dessert, drinking the last of the wine, and waiting for a bill they had no intention of seeing. Those 10 minutes were the most peaceful part of the evening. The meal was over. They just did not know it yet. I sat at the end of the table and listened. Aunt Loretta complained about mulch. Uncle Gerald told a fishing story that wandered around and never found an ending. Brianna took a selfie with the remains of her soufflé. Monique laughed at something my mother said, and for one small second, my mother sounded like the woman who used to sing in the kitchen. I almost softened. Almost. Then my father checked his phone under the table with the tight focus of a man waiting for bad news, and I remembered the message. "Danielle can cover us through spring. She's got more than enough." Noah appeared at the edge of the alcove. I knew before he took one step whose chair he was walking toward. He placed the leather check presenter directly in front of my father, not in the center, not by me, in front of Robert Morgan, the man who made the reservation, whose card was on file, who had told Noah to put it all on this. The table conversation died. My father stared at the folio. I watched him process it. The check was supposed to go to Danielle. The check is in front of me. My mother's eyes widened. She looked at me, then the check, then me again. For the first time all night, her face let the math show. "Danielle," she said. My father recovered first. He had spent 63 years recovering before anybody could call it panic. He picked up the folio, opened it with a casual flick, and did not look at the total. He could not. If he looked at the total in front of everyone, the performance would end too soon. "I've got it," he said. He pulled out the same credit card with the same little flourish and handed it to Noah without taking his eyes off me. "We're celebrating, remember?" Noah took the card. "I'll be right back, sir." He said it gently, the way you speak when you know the floor is about to move under somebody's feet. My father leaned back, crossed his arms, and smiled at me with the confidence of a man who believed the card would save him. Noah came back 4 minutes later. He stood beside my father's chair and leaned down. His voice was quiet, but the table had gone so still that quiet was enough. "I'm sorry, sir. The card has been declined." Nobody moved. My father's smile stayed for one more second, like a light that has not realized the switch is off. "Run it again." Noah nodded and left. My mother gripped her napkin. Brianna put her phone face down. Aunt Loretta stopped chewing. Noah came back 2 minutes later. "I'm sorry, sir. It's still not going through." "Would you like to try another card?" My father reached for his wallet. His fingers moved through the slots. One card, another, a third card tucked behind his driver's license like a last chance he had forgotten was there. He handed it over. The table waited. 16 people. No forks, no laughter, no wine pouring. Just the sound of my father's pride pressing itself into a wallet that suddenly looked too thin. Noah returned a third time. He did not need to say much. His face had already done it. "I'm sorry." My father looked at Noah. Then he looked at me. Not with anger yet. With something bare and startled. The look of a man who thought there would be a net and had just felt open air under his feet. I picked up my sparkling water, took a sip, and set it down. "I don't owe you," I said. I never did. His chair scraped back against the hardwood. "Danielle." His voice was low, shaking at the edges. "What did you do?" "I didn't do anything, Daddy. Your card was declined. That's between you and your bank. You were supposed to—" He stopped himself, but too late. The unfinished sentence sat on the table with the lobster shells. "You were supposed to pay." My mother started crying, not quietly, not the private kind, the kind with gasps and napkin dabs, and enough volume to ask the room for sympathy. "After everything we did for you," she said, "after I carried you, raised you, fed you, how could you sit there and embarrass your father?" I kept my voice level. "Tell me what you did for me in the last 3 years." Her crying paused. "Tell me in front of everyone." Brianna slapped her palm on the table. "This is so typical. You always make everything about you." Aunt Loretta reached for my arm. "Danielle, baby, your father is embarrassed. Can't you just—" "No." One word. I said it cleanly. The way I say no to a vendor trying to charge me twice for the same delivery. No. Then my father broke in a way I did not expect. His shoulders dropped. His voice lowered. For one moment he sounded old. Not proud, not angry, just tired. "Danielle," he said, "we're drowning." I saw him then, the scared man under the performance, the contractor whose business had failed, the father who could not admit he had lost control until a credit card said it in front of everybody. It hurt. I wish it had not, but it did. "I'm sorry you're struggling," I said. He looked at me like he had found a loose thread and wanted to pull it. "And you'd let us drown?" The hurt closed. Even drowning, he was still reaching for my wallet before my hand. I stood up, slowly. No drama, no slammed chair. I did not need the room's permission to leave. This, I said, gesturing to the table, is not asking for help. This is a trap. My mother wiped her face. That's not fair. We wanted you back. You wanted me back for what I could cover. Danielle. I read the messages. The room went pale. Brianna's face changed first. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. My father looked down at the tablecloth. I kept my voice even. Don't tell Danielle, it's everyone. Once she's there, she won't dare say no. My mother closed her eyes. Danielle can cover us through spring. She's got more than enough. My father did not look up. Order the good stuff before she gets there. Once it's on the table, she can't exactly send it back. Brianna whispered, You went through my phone? You left it open in the restroom. That was private. So was my life for the last 3 years, but all of you still felt free to discuss what I owed. Nobody spoke. I looked at my father. If you need help, real help, I will sit down with you and a financial counselor. No audience, no tricks, no lobster. We can look at the numbers and make a plan. His mouth tightened. But I am not paying this bill. I did not order it. I was lied to about it, and I do not owe it to you. I picked up my purse. My mother was crying again, but softer now. Less performance, more fear. For a second, she looked like the woman in the kitchen with the cornbread bowl, only older and cornered by choices she did not want to name. That almost made me stay. Then I remembered 3 years of silence. I looked at her and said the last thing I would say at that table. You always told me family takes care of family, so why was I the only one who ever did? No one answered. I walked toward the front, past the busser, past the hostess, past the heavy glass doors and brass handles. Noah caught up to me near the coat check. He held my receipt in one hand. Ma'am, he said. I turned. He looked embarrassed, like he was not sure if he was allowed to say anything. Thank you, he said quietly. I touched his shoulder. You're doing great, I told him again. Then I walked outside. The parking lot was quiet. The evening air was warm and the cicadas had started up in the landscaping trees. Bellamy looked expensive from the outside, all amber light and clean windows, like nothing ugly had just happened in the back alcove. I sat in my car with the engine off and the window down. The sticky note was still on my steering wheel. One dinner, then home. I pulled out my phone. The family group chat was already flooding. Mom, Aunt Loretta, Brianna, cousins. People who had not called me in years were suddenly typing like their thumbs were on fire. I did not read the messages. I scrolled to the bottom, tapped Leave Group, and watched the notification appear. Danielle has left the chat. I set the phone on the passenger seat, started the car, and drove home in silence. Not the old silence, not the kind that waits for punishment. This one belonged to me. At home, I did not sleep right away. I put my purse on the kitchen counter, kicked off my shoes, and stood there under the little stove light with my receipt from Bellamy still folded in my hand. 1 sparkling water, 2 refills. 30% tip. The whole thing was less than what Aunt Loretta had spent on dessert. For a few minutes, I felt ridiculous, not triumphant, not powerful. Ridiculous. My hands were shaking over a receipt for water, and my family was probably still arguing over a bill I'd refused to touch. The condo was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the ice maker dropping 1 cube into the tray like it had waited for the most dramatic possible time. I laughed then, just once. It came out small and tired. Then I cried. That part matters. Boundaries do not always feel strong while you are making them. Sometimes they feel like standing in your own kitchen at midnight with mascara under your eyes, wondering if you are cruel because you finally stopped being convenient. I sat on the floor beside the cabinets and let myself cry for the mother I still missed, the father I still wanted to respect, and the sister who had once slept in my room during thunderstorms. Jasmine called around 12:30. I had texted her only 3 words from the parking lot. I didn't pay. She did not ask for the whole story right away. She just said, "Are you home?" "Yes." "Did you eat?" I looked at my kitchen. There was a container of leftover rice in the fridge and half a lime on the cutting board from breakfast. "No." "Eat something with salt," she said, "then drink water, then sleep. You can fall apart tomorrow on company time." That made me laugh harder than it should have. It also made me feel less alone. So I ate cold rice standing at the counter, drank tap water out of a mug because all the clean glasses were in the dishwasher, and taped the Bellamy receipt under the sticky note on my refrigerator. One dinner, then home. I had made it home. The aftermath was quieter than I expected. Nobody called that night, or the next day, or the day after that. The group chat continued without me. I know because Monique reached out separately a week later. "I wanted to say I'm sorry," she wrote. "I should have known better than to sit there and let that happen. That dinner was wrong." Monique was the only one who apologized without asking me for anything. I replied this time, "Thank you." 3 weeks later, Brianna texted, not to apologize, not to ask if I was okay. She wanted first and last month's rent for a new apartment. I sent her the name and number of a financial counseling service. She wrote back, "Wow." I did not answer. Through Monique, I learned the rest in pieces over the next few months. My father's contracting business had folded 18 months before the dinner after 2 commercial jobs went bad. My mother had been covering minimum payments on 4 credit cards with a home equity line that was already maxed. The house went on the market in July. They moved to a smaller rental 30 minutes south. Brianna took a job answering phones at a dental office. None of that made me happy. I need to say that because people hear stories like this and think the boundary is the revenge. It was not. I did not want my parents embarrassed. I did not want my sister humbled. I did not want the house sold. But wanting better for people does not make their bills yours. I did what I promised at the table. 6 weeks later, I called my father and offered to meet with him and a financial counselor. He answered on the 4th ring. "What do you want?" His voice was rough, not drunk, not quite angry, worn down. "I meant what I said," I told him. "If you want to sit down with someone and make a plan, I will go with you." He was quiet for a long time. For a second, I thought he might say yes. Then he said, "I don't need my daughter teaching me how to be a man." The line clicked dead. That was not a clean ending. It would be easier to tell you he apologized, that my mother called crying, that Brianna admitted she was wrong, and we all found some careful way forward. That is not what happened. My mother sends a Christmas card now. No long note, just "Love, Mama" under the printed greeting. I do not know if that is pride, guilt, habit, or the closest thing to an apology she can manage. I keep the cards in a drawer, not because they fix anything, because they prove something moved, even if it only moved an inch. Brianna still does not speak to me unless she needs something. My father has not called again. Aunt Loretta tells people I humiliated the family, which is funny because I remember 16 people sitting down to humiliate me first. As for me, I still run 4 restaurants. I still order sparkling water when I eat out. I still look at large tables and know who is actually paying before the check comes. The difference is that I no longer confuse being needed with being loved. That was the most expensive lesson I ever learned, and the night I stopped paying for it was the first night I felt rich. That is my story. 16 seats, 1 glass of water, and a credit card that told the truth before anybody else would. If you have ever been treated like the family bank, hear me clearly. Helping is a choice. It is not a debt. And a quiet boundary is still a boundary, even when the whole table is waiting for you to fold. Share this with someone who needs that reminder. Leave a comment if this hit close to home, and subscribe if you want to hear the next story.